Hello, I'm back with a new book today. The book is Fear Vana, and I'm very hopeful that you're going to enjoy this book. This is the book. The title is somewhat unusual, so let me show it to you. Fear Vana. Obviously, it's a made up word, and we'll see exactly what this word means as we go further. So, Fear Vana is a book by Akshay Nanauti, a US Marine who fought in the Iraq War and also had many other experiences of life. So the tapestry of his life is what really led to this book. It's not a fiction or literary exercise in any way, but made out of his own experiences. So what is Fearvana? Obviously, we have to begin at the beginning. And even before I go there, I would like to put a thought in front of you. The author, at one point, as a person participating in the Iraq war, says that I'm just one man, and it would be arrogant for me to think I could single handedly transform our understanding of fear. It's a word that is so deeply ingrained in our collective subconscious that changing its meaning for everyone will be a losing battle. So I chose to create a new word so it can have a new meaning and also remain closely associated with the word fear. This is one of the reasons why this book is important for all of us. The author stating in a matter of fact way that he's just one man. Only a man who served in the army and faced life and death situations would know the fallacy of the popular term one man army. He knows that when he or his comrade is hit by a shrapnel or is a burning vehicle, it is his teammate whose actions will decide if he lives or dies, or if he dies, will he die with dignity. This insight cannot come to a subject matter expert sitting in a conference room simply because he or she does not have a comparable experience of life. And this is the real reason why this book works. The author himself has explained the word fear vana in many different ways, and I'll pick a few to get us going, and you will see more as we go through this or if we pick up the book. Author says fear vana is the bliss that results from engaging our fears to pursue our own worthy struggle. A lot of keywords here. The struggle, but the worthiness of the struggle. Engaging our fears, not trying to conquer them, not trying to run away from them. The second one is fear one as a new word coined by the author's wife to transform our relationship with fear so we can harness its power. So fear is also power if we know how to harness it. Another one, Fearvana is the secret to health, wealth, and happiness. Now, this sounds like a book on economics or spirituality or some such thing, but I assure you it's not. The author leaves it to your imagination to deconstruct the world, and so will I. About the author himself, as he says in the book, in his own introduction, a Marine Corps veteran, adventurer, entrepreneur, and much more, as I found out when I read the book. A US Marine who fought in Iraq, he had the enviable job of walking in front of Humvees to look for IEDs. But it was not all about bravery and medals. He became a drug addict at a very young age, suffered from PTSD after he came home from the war, only to become an alcoholic, and is now a successful entrepreneur, speaker, coach, and perhaps most importantly, someone who just keeps pushing the envelope all the time. Some of the big bombs or IEDs that he hurls at us in this book, I'll present a few, but I assure you there are many, many more. If you don't find a worthy struggle to pursue, struggle will find us anyway. So there is nothing like a life without a struggle. Either you choose to find your own or it's going to find you. Do not avoid fear, but embrace it. Fear is a gift. Adversity is not just inevitable, it is desirable. There is nothing like a life without adversity. And finally, my favorite, pain weighs an ounce, regret weighs a ton. The pain of the discipline, the hard work that you have, to achieve in order to meet your goal will weigh just an ounce in your mind ultimately. But the regret of not doing it or regret of not having a goal in the first place will weigh a ton on your mind for the rest of your life. These are some of the important ones, many more will come. And why do I present this book to you, first of all? What is so special about this book? So, for those who love categorizations of the book, this is a self improvement book in some way, but unlike any I have read. First, like I said, because of the author's unique experience that led to this book. And secondly, this book quotes many extraordinary people from different walks of life, right from NBA legend Steph Curry to Mikhaili Csikszentmihalyi, whose book I reviewed some time back, a book called Flow, which is simply a wonderful book, to Dr. Ramchandran and many more. While all these people have done incredible work in their own profession, and they have also written books, they have tried their best to make those books accessible to a lay reader. But ultimately, there is a limit on how much you can simplify when you are explaining how neurological pathways work inside your brain. In fact, I'll venture to add that even if Steph Curry were to write a book explaining 400 different ways of controlling the ball, it will be hard even for the most die-hard fans of basketball to digest. Whereas this book, written by a generalist in a manner of speaking, beautifully leverages the essence of their work to further his narrative without leaving the terrain that a lay reader is capable of grasping. I look at a book like this as a door opener for many of us, for many other books that get mentioned in this book or that come to our mind as we read this book. Of course, in addition to its own intrinsic value. It also reminds me at one level the expression that all of us have heard in different contexts, and that is about the discrimination of low expectation. While many of us may be guilty of treating others to this, I think we are probably most guilty of this about ourselves. Our expectation from our own self can be so low or even non existent that we never even begin to explore who we are and what we are capable of. This book will empower you to change that. I will start with two quotes or events from this book that really made this book a lot of fun for me. First is the very opening line of the introduction, which is rather grave, and there is no pun intended here. The graveyard is the richest place on earth. That's how he starts. And then he goes on to explain what it means. And the next one is the very first page of the book itself, where the author describes the war situation. Well, let me read it from the book. There is no way to paraphrase it without ruining it. So let me read it from the book. There you go. Perched behind an M240 machine gun, the gunner opened fire, showering 950 rounds a minute at the speeding vehicle in a desperate attempt to save his brothers. Two men in a pitch black sedan raced toward the squad of Marines, doing everything they could to avoid the hail of gunfire raining down on them. They swerved across the road, they crouched beneath the windshield, yet they did not slow down. Boom! They collided with one of the Humvees. The force of the impact launched three Marines 30 feet away from the havoc, and those were the lucky ones. Two vehicles, now entangled in a fiery wreckage, spun around in circles, spraying fuel in every direction. A merry-go-round of mayhem. Flames engulfed everything, the messengers of death, the mangled metal frame of the Humvee, and the two Marines still inside. From less than 100 yards away, the gunner witnessed the entire collision, but could do nothing to prevent it. In one single life-altering moment, when, as he said, life lost all its innocence, Lance Corporal Dale stood powerless against the dark hands of destiny. Despite the inevitability of the disaster, he now had a choice to make, and he chose to act. Dale leapt from his turret and moved cautiously toward the burning wreck, expecting a second explosion from the possible bomb on board the black sedan. Two charred corpses, entombed in the fiery destruction, sent a clear signal to Dale they were no longer a threat. Dale moved on to the Humvee. By the time he arrived, the other Marines had pulled the passengers out. Only the driver remained, and Dale and his buddy Peter knew what needed to be done. They ran into the fire. With every effort, they what felt like hours, they finally managed to pull the driver out of the Humvee. I will stop here, but there is so much more that is equally beautiful. But I'm sure you get my point. You have probably read novels, seen movies with scenes like this, brilliantly written. But when you know that this author lived through this, this book will acquire a whole new meaning for you. And that's what I wanted to set as the stage for this book. And while it's impossible to say everything in this book, I'll just touch upon a few big themes that I found very engrossing and very valuable when I went through this book many times over the last 3 months. The first one is the balance between suffering and joy, and this really took me down a lot of different roads. We are generally conditioned to believe that life is all about making intelligent choices to get maximum pleasure or happiness and minimize, if not eliminate, suffering or pain. It appears all socio-political economic systems are built around this theme. Every political leader seems to want to assure us that we will be happy all the time if we elect him. Even spiritual systems seem to tell us that it's all about finding bliss that is already inside us. In the experience of Fearvana, the author tells us that fear will always be there, even for those who have reached the pinnacle of their craft and are unrivaled. It is the fear that drives them to train, and the training is what makes them look to us as so fearless. Jill Henreth, a cave diver, told the author once that if you don't chase fear, it will chase you. Or the author himself likes to put it as follows: if you don't seek over the struggle, struggle will find you. So these are some of the big things that you see in this book that start altering your thinking. The second one that author visits again and again in this book is the two brains inside us, the animal brain versus the human brain, or the limbic versus the cortical, the famous 3F behavior of the animal brain, that is fight, flight, or freeze. And of course, the higher meaning, or looking at yourself from above, that the human brain is capable of. This is a running theme. And let us see why Dale, who ran to the Humvee to rescue the driver from the fire, why he did what he did. So the author says that there is this love hormone in action. It triggers the desire to protect and care for people we love. And this trumps the animal brain's 3F response capability that would have clearly chosen to flee from the scene if the animal brain were to be in charge of the situation. But in case of Dale, clearly the animal brain was not in charge, the human brain was. And through such episodes, this book provides us with the big answer. Our animal brain can only make us fight, flee, or freeze, but not run into a fire to save a comrade. This is the higher nature awakened by the love hormone, and if you are without it, as we are so often in our pursuit of success as we define it today, it is just not possible to realize your human potential. I often think of PTSD and other mental ailments that veterans suffer from when they come back are probably from the experience of the civil society that they experience when they come back, more than the experience of the war. The absolute and total lack of empathy for others they experience must be throwing them off quite a bit. Of course, had they not seen the war, they would have probably happily played the game with all of us. However, I digress. And the author gives us very specific training exercises, and I'll speak more about them as we go forward. Another important theme in this book that is explained in quite a bit of detail is the time travel. And it is not the time travel in the sense that we normally think of as some science fiction kind of stuff. It has got a very different meaning here, and much more meaning. The author first tells us that, like it or not, you are a product of your past, a product of your memories. Your present is molded by it, and your future is dependent on it. But it need not drive you so much. There are ways and means to overcome that. That's what the author is going to explain to us here. The author does not ask us to erase or alter our experience. That will be fake anyway. But to alter what memories we associate with those experiences and how they play on your mind. Say you felt a close friend or a relative abandoned you at a crucial moment. And this is a hurt that is there in your heart all the time, that makes you do things or not do things. If you can work on changing that memory to say that, oh, I think I misunderstood my friend. What he or she was trying to do really was to give me the freedom to be my own person, to make my own decision, rather than spoon feeding me or babysitting me. Now you can see the same experience can become a powerhouse that can fuel your growth rather than be the shackle that it is today. And then the author explains the process of acquisition and consolidation and retrieval of memories and experiences and how you can learn to handle them. The next one comes into at the end of every chapter, really speaking. So it is about the training exercises that are a constant theme in this whole book. What the author tells us here is that for every principle that you learn, you must have some practice. Otherwise, you cannot internalize that. And if you don't internalize that, then you won't be able to do it almost like an autopilot when the moment comes for you to be able to do that. So this tool, the training exercises, you must use them if you want to truly ingest the teaching of this book into your life and experience their power to shape your life the way you want. They are not rocket science, and that's the whole point. You have to just do them. You have to have the faith and the discipline to do them, not theorize about it, not philosophize about it, but just do it. And I guess it comes from the author's US Marine background, where climbing a mountain with 100 pounds weight on your shoulders is not a matter of being superhuman. It is not a matter of having the will. It is about training. Where running toward a machine gun or a fire to save a fellow Marine's life is not about bravery. It is about training. If you want to conquer that hill that you have in your vision, you must train, and that training will be a pain. But like the author said earlier, the pain that you have for achieving your goal will weigh just an ounce. The regret of not achieving it going to weigh a ton. So keep that in mind. And the author summarizes this in a beautiful sentence. He says, at the intersection of pain and pleasure, we become the greatest version of ourselves. So pain is not something to avoid. Pain is not something to flee from. Fear is not something to avoid. Fear is not something to hate or feel weak about. It's all the reality of life, and it can be molded to make us better people, to make us achieve more. And that's the key message of this session. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you liked it, please do subscribe to my channel below. As usual, I am providing some links where you can buy this book or see other reviews on YouTube, and also give your comments and suggestions, and I would be happy to answer your suggestions and comments. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.